I did not know that so much of what happened to me growing up in Scientology and being in the Sea Org and being on staff, that it was traumatic. I mean, I knew I didn't like it, but it's when you're like when your entire existence you were stuck in fight or flight, you're kept there. That's all you know. For me, it's been coming out of that and realizing that I don't need to be in fight or flight. It caused a lot of issues. I mean, physically, when I talk about my neurologist, I was getting muscle spasms all up my body and my legs that were so strong that when they did blood work, they said, your muscles, your spasms are so strong, they're breaking down your muscles on a cellular level.
Wow.
And I would get MRI after MRI because they thought maybe I was going down the MS path, but I didn't. So there was no hard wiring that they could find to explain what was happening to me.
Hmm.
And so they sent me to the University of Minnesota and I saw two different neurologists. And what it came down to is they're like, we understand this today. A couple of years ago, we didn't even understand it, but they call it functional neurology, where it's not a hardwire issue with your brain, it's a soft wire issue. Your brain has rewired in ways that is causing your brain and your nervous system to not properly communicate. And when you're faced with some type of major stress, which is when fight or flight kicks in, you need your brain and your nervous system to work together, it goes into overdrive. And for me, it manifested in my whole body. I would have, I forgot what it was called, but like these non-brain seizures, like I would be alert and know what was happening, the
Wow.
the muscle spasms, all that. So I worked with them. They said, they're like, this is what we think it is. And then they go, but here's the thing, we usually see this in veterans who've done multiple tours of duty. Were you in the military? I'm like, no, no. And I it's not something I wanted to get into. I was still like, I don't even know where to start with this. So I was kind of just playing stupid in there. And you could tell they were kind of confused. And I'm like,
You were like,
I
does
was
the
raised
Space
in,
Navy count?
yeah. I'm like, I was raised in a cult, da 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 da. All this stuff went on, blah, 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 blah. It was Scientology. And as soon as I said Scientology, they were like, oh, okay. And what they said, though, they said, we now know that you can rewire a brain again, that with neuroplasticity, you can change it. You can get your brain and your nervous system back in alignment. I was doing the wrong type of physical therapy. I needed neurological physical therapy. I needed therapy. They told me about cognitive behavioral therapy. And to be honest, my insurance wasn't that great. So I went on YouTube and I started following this chick, Therapy in a Nutshell. And she talked about this cognitive behavioral therapy. And I started just thinking with it and using it as a tool. And it resonated with me. I'm like, this makes a lot of sense. And I started to get better. It was like the cane less and less. And like I said, I'm like 9, 10 months now where I don't need it. I'm like, I just started walking to work out because if I do something really physical, I'll still get some muscle spasms, but nothing like what they were.
Wow.
And this really, for me, after coming out of this and realizing, like, holy shit, this rewired my brain. It rewired my brain to the point where my brain and my nervous system weren't functioning properly. And I had two ways to go in that moment: either go down the rabbit hole of this will continue to, because I did have another doctor tell me, you'll just continue to get worse.
Hmm.
And I didn't accept that. And, or take some steps to try to get my brain to wire back in a way that's more, that works for me, that doesn't have my body react that way to stress in these situations. And that's something I've been working on. And through all of that, and that's why I think I'm kind of, after 13 years, or maybe it's been 10 years, maybe 7 years since I've really publicly said anything about Scientology, where I'm ready to talk about it because I want to process it with how I see the world today. I want to
Hmm.
look at it. I want to talk about it. I want to see it. I want to take it apart with the point of view that I have today and the more peace that I have today.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, oh, dancing on our love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not,